I sold my successful company to pay off my husband's $150K gambling debts. That night, I overheard him on the phone with his best friend. He was laughing. She's not a wife. She's my personal ATM. Her job is to pay for my mistakes. I didn't scream. I just smiled and made a call that would turn his life upside down. The paperwork sat on my kitchen table like a tombstone. I stared at the signature line where I'd signed away 12 years of my life. Kate Harmon Events, my event planning business, was gone. Sold to a corporate firm for enough money to cover Marcus's debts and leave us with a small cushion. A very small cushion. My hand trembled as I lifted my wine glass. The Pinot Noir tasted like ash. "You did the right thing," Marcus had said that morning, kissing my forehead like I was a child who needed reassurance. "I know it was hard, babe, but we're a team. We'll get through this together. Together." The word felt hollow now. I'd built that company from nothing. At 28, fresh out of a corporate job that made me want to scream into my pillow every night, I'd taken a leap. I started planning events from my tiny apartment, birthday parties, baby showers, small corporate gatherings. I worked 18-hour days. I missed weddings, funerals, holidays. I poured everything I had into making other people's moments perfect. And it worked. By 35, I had a team of 6, an office in downtown Portland, and a client list that included some of the city's most prominent families. I'd planned galas for nonprofits, weddings for tech executives, corporate retreats for Fortune 500 companies. I was good at what I did. No, I was exceptional. Marcus had been proud of me then. Or at least, that's what I thought. We met at a charity auction I'd organized. He was charming, quick-witted, and devastatingly handsome in his tailored suit. He worked in sales for a tech company, he said. He loved hiking, good wine, and bad action movies. He made me laugh. After years of putting my personal life on hold, I let myself fall. We got married 2 years later. A small ceremony, just family and close friends. I didn't have time for a big wedding. I was too busy planning everyone else's. Marcus didn't mind. "As long as I get to marry you," he'd said, "I don't care if we do it at City Hall." The first few years were good. He supported my business, or so I thought. He'd bring me coffee during late nights at the office. He'd help me set up for events when I was short-staffed. He told me I was brilliant, unstoppable. But somewhere around year 5, things shifted. He started complaining about money. We had plenty, I made good money, and he had a steady job. But he always seemed stressed about bills. I didn't question it. I just worked harder. Then came the gambling. It started small. He'd mentioned losing $100 on a basketball game. Then it was a poker night that went badly. Then it was a weekend in Vegas that wiped out our savings. "I have a problem," he admitted 6 months ago, tears in his eyes. "I need help." I held him while he cried. I researched therapists, support groups, treatment programs. I rearranged my schedule to drive him to meetings. I believed him when he said he was getting better. 2 weeks ago, he came home pale and shaking. "I owe money," he said. "A lot of money." "How much?" $150,000. The number hit me like a freight train. I couldn't breathe. "To who?" "People you don't want to know about," he said, his voice breaking. "Katie, I'm scared. They're threatening me. They know where we live." I didn't sleep that night. I ran the numbers over and over. We didn't have that kind of cash. Our house had equity, but not enough. My retirement accounts wouldn't cover it. There was only one asset big enough: my company. I met with a business broker the next day. He made some calls. Within a week, I had an offer from a firm that had been circling for years, trying to buy me out. The offer was fair, more than fair actually. Enough to pay off Marcus's debt and give us a fresh start. I signed the papers this morning. Marcus had hugged me tight. "I'm going to make this up to you," he whispered. "I swear, Katie, I'll spend the rest of my life making this up to you." I wanted to believe him. Now, sitting at the kitchen table with my wine and my grief, I heard his voice from the den. He was on the phone. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. Our house was small and sound carried. "Dude, I can't believe she actually did it," Marcus said, laughing. I froze. "No, seriously," he continued. "She sold the whole thing. The business, the client list, Everything. I thought I'd have to push harder, but she caved like a house of cards. My stomach dropped. Jake, she's not a wife. She's my personal ATM. Her job is to pay for my mistakes, and she does it every single time. The wine glass slipped from my hand. It didn't break, it just rolled across the table, spilling red liquid like blood. I mean, there was no gambling debt, Marcus said, his voice dripping with amusement. Well, not 150 grand worth. I owed maybe 10, 15 tops. The rest? That's our nest egg, brother. I've been moving it into an account she doesn't know about. By this time next year, I'll have enough to bail and set myself up nice. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. She's so fucking gullible, he continued. I just had to cry a little, act scared, and boom. She handed over everything. Easiest con I ever ran. Jake said something I couldn't hear. Marcus laughed again. Nah, I'll keep her around a little longer. She's useful. Besides, divorce is expensive. I'll wait until I've milked her dry, then I'll bounce. She'll be too broken to fight me. The world tilted. I stood up slowly, carefully, like I was made of glass. I walked to the bathroom, closed the door, and stared at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me was a stranger. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Her face was pale. She looked small, defeated. No. I leaned closer to the mirror. No. I wasn't going to break. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to smile. And I was going to burn his world to the ground. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. I found the name I was looking for, Linda Chen. Linda had been my mentor when I first started my business. She'd sold her own event planning company years ago and retired to Napa Valley. We still talked every few months. She was sharp, ruthless when she needed to be, and fiercely loyal to the people she cared about. The phone rang twice. Katie? Linda's voice was warm. This is a surprise. How are you? I need your help, I said quietly. There was a pause. What happened? My husband has been stealing from me for years. He convinced me to sell my business to pay off fake debts. He's planning to leave me once he's drained me completely. Another pause. Longer this time. Where are you right now? Linda asked, her voice cold and focused. In my bathroom. He's in the den. Does he know you know? No? Good. Keep it that way. Here's what you're going to do. I listened as Linda outlined a plan. It was simple, methodical, ruthless. When she finished, I felt something shift inside me. The grief, the humiliation, the rage, it all crystallized into something sharp and clear. Purpose. Thank you, I said. Katie, Linda said softly, you built something incredible once. You can do it again? But first, we need to make sure he doesn't take anything else from you. I hung up and stared at my reflection again. The broken woman was gone. I washed my face, reapplied my lipstick, and walked back into the kitchen. Marcus was still on the phone, still laughing. I didn't say a word. I just cleaned up the spilled wine, poured myself a fresh glass, and sat down at the table. He had no idea what was coming. But he would. I didn't sleep that night. I lay next to Marcus in our bed, listening to him snore, and felt nothing but cold calculation. The man I'd loved, the man I thought I'd loved, didn't exist. He never had. The next morning, I woke up early and made coffee. I scrambled eggs. I toasted bread. When Marcus shuffled into the kitchen, yawning, I smiled at him. Morning, I said brightly. He blinked, surprised. You're in a good mood. I've been thinking, I said, sliding a plate in front of him. You're right. We're going to get through this. We're a team. He grinned and kissed my cheek. That's my girl. I wanted to pour the hot coffee over his head. Instead, I sipped mine and scrolled through my phone like everything was normal. As soon as he left for work, I got to business. Linda had given me a name, Richard Torres, a forensic accountant who specialized in financial abuse cases. I called him from my car, parked in a grocery store lot 3 miles from my house. Ms. Harmon, Richard said when he answered. Linda told me to expect your call. Tell me everything. I did. I told him about the gambling story, the sale of my business, the phone call I'd overheard. I told him I needed to know the truth, all of it. I'll need access to your financial records, Richard said. Bank statements, tax returns, credit card statements, everything from the last 10 years. I can get that. Do you have a separate account he doesn't know about? Not yet. Open one today. Transfer any money you can into it. Small amounts. Nothing that will trigger alerts. And Ms. Harmon? Yes? Be very careful. If he suspects you know, he'll move faster. I hung up and sat in the car, hands shaking. This was real. I was really doing this. I drove to a bank I'd never used before and opened a checking account in my name only. I transferred $2,000 from my personal account, a sum small enough to look like a normal expense. Then I went home and began the methodical work of gathering documents. Marcus kept everything in a file cabinet in his home office. He wasn't particularly careful. Why would he be? I'd never questioned him before. I photographed tax returns, bank statements, investment account summaries. I uploaded everything to a secure cloud drive. It took hours. By the time I heard Marcus's car in the driveway, I'd put everything back exactly as I'd found it. Hey, babe, he called when he walked in. What's for dinner? I thought we'd order Thai, I said, smiling. Perfect. We ate on the couch, watching some mindless action movie. He rested his hand on my thigh. I didn't flinch. I just kept smiling. The next day, I sent everything to Richard. 2 days later, he called me back. Ms. Harmon, we need to meet in person. His office was in a nondescript building downtown. Richard was in his 50s, with gray hair and sharp eyes. He gestured for me to sit. How bad is it? I asked. He opened a folder. Worse than you thought. He walked me through it. Marcus had been siphoning money from our joint accounts for 8 years, since the year after we got married. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. He'd opened credit cards in my name without my knowledge. He'd taken out a home equity line of credit and forged my signature. The gambling debt he claimed was $150,000, Richard said. He does owe money, but it's closer to $15,000. The rest of the money from the sale of your business? He transferred it to an account under his friend Jake's name, probably to hide it in the divorce. I felt like I was going to be sick. There's more, Richard said gently. He's been planning this for a long time. I found emails between him and Jake going back 5 years. They discuss the long con, how to maximize what he can take from you. He turned his computer screen toward me. The email was dated 3 years ago. From Marcus Harmon to Jake Brennan. Subject, Phase 2. She's so focused on the business, she doesn't even look at the accounts anymore. I've been skimming for 2 years and she hasn't noticed a thing. I think I can get another $100K out of her before I need to make a move. The gambling story is solid. I've been setting it up for months. A few losses here and there, some fake stress, and she'll believe anything. You were right, man. Marrying her was the best investment I ever made. I couldn't breathe. Richard closed the laptop. I'm sorry, Ms. Harmon. Can I get the money back? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Some of it. It's going to take time, and you'll need a good lawyer. I can recommend someone. Do it. He wrote down a name, Rachel Ortiz. She's a family law attorney who handles financial abuse cases. She's aggressive, and she doesn't lose. I took the card. One more thing, Richard said. You need to be smart about this. If Marcus thinks you're onto him, he'll move the money offshore or hide it in ways we can't trace. You need to keep playing the role until we're ready to strike. How long? A few weeks? Maybe a month? Can you do that? I thought about the last 8 years. I thought about every time I'd worked late, every event I'd planned, every sacrifice I'd made. I thought about Marcus laughing on the phone, calling me his personal ATM. Yes, I said, I can do that. That night, I went home and cooked Marcus's favorite meal, steak with garlic mashed potatoes. I poured him a glass of expensive whiskey. I asked him about his day. He told me about a big sale he'd closed. He was animated, excited. He kissed me and said, I'm so lucky to have you. I smiled. I'm lucky to have you too. Later, when he was asleep, I went into the bathroom and locked the door. I sat on the floor and let myself cry. Quietly, so he wouldn't hear. I cried for the woman I'd been, the woman who trusted him, The woman who'd believed in us. Then I wiped my face, stood up, and looked at myself in the mirror. That woman was gone. I met Rachel Ortiz 2 days later in her sleek downtown office. She was in her 40s with dark hair pulled into a tight bun and eyes that missed nothing. "Richard sent me your file," she said, gesturing for me to sit. "Your husband is a piece of work. Can you help me?" "Yes, but it's not going to be easy. He's hidden assets, forged documents, and involved a third party. We'll need to move carefully." "What do I need to do?" Rachel leaned forward. "Keep living your life like nothing's wrong. I'll file for divorce and a fraud lawsuit simultaneously. We'll catch him off guard, but in the meantime, I need you to gather more evidence. Recordings if you can get them. Anything that shows intent. He talks to Jake on the phone a lot. Can you record those conversations?" I hesitated. "Is that legal?" "Oregon is a one-party consent state. As long as you're in the room, you can record. But be careful. If he finds out, this gets a lot harder." I nodded. That night, I downloaded a recording app on my phone. 2 days later, I got my chance. Marcus was in the den, on the phone with Jake. I pretended to be reading in the living room, my phone tucked between the couch cushions, recording. "She's been so sweet lately," Marcus said, laughing. "I think selling the business broke her a little. She's like extra clingy now. It's pathetic." Jake said something I couldn't hear. "Nah, I'm not worried. She's not going to do anything. She doesn't have the spine. I'll ride this out another 6 months, then I'm gone. And by then, I'll have close to 300 grand socked away." "What if she finds out?" Jake asked. "She won't. And even if she does, what's she going to do? She doesn't even have a business anymore. She's got nothing." I stopped the recording. I sent it to Rachel. She called me 10 minutes later. "This is good. Really good. We're almost ready." "How much longer?" I asked. "1 more week. I want to make sure we have everything. Then we move." That week was the longest of my life. I smiled at Marcus. I cooked for him. I laughed at his jokes. I played the role of the devoted, broken wife. And every night I reminded myself, this was temporary. 1 week later, Rachel called. "It's time," she said. I felt a surge of adrenaline. "What do I do?" "Nothing. I'll handle everything. Just be ready. Tomorrow morning, a process server will deliver the divorce papers and the lawsuit to Marcus at his office. By the time he gets home, we'll have already filed injunctions to freeze the accounts in Jake's name. What if he comes after me? He won't. I'm also filing for a restraining order based on financial abuse and intimidation. If he contacts you, he's in violation." I exhaled slowly. "Katie," Rachel said, her voice softer, "you're doing the right thing." I wasn't sure I believed her, but I nodded anyway. The next morning, I woke up early. Marcus was still asleep. I got dressed, grabbed my purse, and walked out of the house. I didn't look back. I drove to a coffee shop and waited. At 10:17 a.m., my phone rang. It was Marcus. I didn't answer. He called again and again. Then a text. "What the fuck did you do?" I turned off my phone. At 11 a.m., Rachel called from her office line. "It's done," she said. "He's been served. The accounts are frozen, and the restraining order is in effect." "What happens now?" "Now, we fight." I hung up and sat in the coffee shop, staring at my cold latte. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than rage. I felt hope. I couldn't go back to the house. Not yet. Rachel had advised me to stay somewhere else for a few days while things settled. I checked into a budget hotel near the airport. Nothing fancy, just a clean room with a bed and a door that locked. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my phone. 43 missed calls from Marcus. 17 text messages. I didn't read them. I didn't need to. I could imagine what they said. Instead, I called my best friend, Nora. "Katie?" she answered, surprised. "I thought you were buried under work. I haven't heard from you in weeks." "I need to tell you something," I said. I told her everything. The gambling story, the sale of my company, the phone call, the investigation, the divorce. There was a long silence. "Oh my God," Nora finally said. "Katie, I'm so sorry. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I didn't want anyone to know until I was ready to move. Where are you now? A hotel. Absolutely not. Pack your stuff. You're staying with me. Nora, I don't want to be a burden. You're not. You're my best friend. Get your ass over here. I smiled for the first time in days. Okay. Nora lived in a cozy bungalow in Southeast Portland. She was a graphic designer who worked from home, and her house always smelled like lavender and fresh coffee. When I arrived, she pulled me into a tight hug. "You're safe here," she said. I stayed in her guest room. For the first few days, I barely left. I slept, cried, and tried to process everything. Nora brought me tea and didn't push me to talk. But on the fourth day, Rachel called. "We need to go over some things," she said. "Can you come to my office?" I met her that afternoon. She had a stack of documents on her desk. "Marcus's lawyer reached out," she said. "He wants to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" "He's offering to settle. He'll give you half of the money from the sale of your business and drop any claim to your future earnings. In exchange, you drop the fraud lawsuit." "Absolutely not." Rachel smiled. "Good. That's what I told him. But Katie, I need you to understand. This is going to get ugly. Marcus's lawyer is going to paint you as vindictive, greedy, someone who's trying to destroy him out of spite. They'll dig into your life, your business, everything. Let them." "You're sure?" I thought about the emails, the recordings, the 8 years of lies. "I'm sure." Rachel nodded. "Okay, then we go to war." Over the next few weeks, I learned just how dirty divorce could get. Marcus's lawyer filed a countersuit, claiming I'd been financially controlling and had forced him into debt. It was absurd. Richard's records proved otherwise. But it didn't matter. The goal was to muddy the waters, to make me look as bad as him. They subpoenaed my business records, my tax returns, my emails. They questioned former employees, trying to find anything that made me look incompetent or unethical. It was exhausting, humiliating. But Rachel was relentless. She presented the recordings, the emails, the forensic accounting report. She built a case so airtight that even Marcus's expensive lawyer started to sweat. And then, something unexpected happened. Jake cracked. Rachel had subpoenaed him as part of the fraud case. He tried to dodge it, but eventually, he was forced to testify. Under oath, with the threat of perjury hanging over him, Jake admitted everything. He confirmed that Marcus had lied about the gambling debts. He confirmed the offshore account. He even provided emails that Rachel hadn't seen, messages where Marcus explicitly discussed his plan to drain Katie dry and disappear. When Rachel called to tell me, I almost couldn't believe it. "Jake turned on him?" I asked. "Completely. He's trying to save himself. He knows if he goes down with Marcus, he's looking at serious legal consequences." "What does this mean?" "It means we have him. Marcus can't wriggle out of this." I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. The court date was set for 6 weeks out. In the meantime, I needed to figure out my life. I couldn't stay with Nora forever, and I couldn't keep living in limbo. One night, as I lay in her guest bed, I thought about what Linda had said. "You built something incredible once. You can do it again?" Could I? I didn't have my company anymore. I didn't have my client list, my reputation, my team. I was 42 years old, living in my best friend's guest room, fighting a legal battle that was draining what little money I had left. But I did have one thing. I knew how to plan events. I knew how to make magic happen on a budget, under pressure, with impossible odds. If I could do that, I could rebuild. The next morning, I called Linda. "I need to start over," I said, "but I don't know where to begin." "Start small," she said. "You don't need a big office or a fancy team. You just need clients." "Do you still have any contacts?" I thought about it. Most of my old clients had contracts with the firm that bought my business. But there were a few, smaller clients, personal connections, who might still remember me. "Maybe," I said. "Call them. Offer your services as a freelancer. Undercut the big firms. Build from there. What if they say no? Then you call someone else. Katie, you're not the same woman you were when you started the first time. You're stronger now. You've been through hell and you're still standing. Use that." I hung up and opened my laptop. I made a list of every contact I still had. Former clients, vendors, colleagues, people who'd worked with me over the years. Then I started sending emails. The responses trickled in slowly. Some people didn't reply, some politely declined, but a few, just a few, said yes. A former client needed help planning her daughter's quinceañera. A small nonprofit wanted someone to organize their annual fundraiser. A friend of a friend was getting married and couldn't afford the big firms. They were small gigs. The pay was modest, but it was work. I took every job. I planned the quinceañera from Nora's living room, coordinating with vendors over the phone and email. I organized the nonprofit fundraiser with a budget so tight it made me want to cry. I helped the bride find a venue, a caterer, a florist, all within her budget. And slowly, word started to spread. One client referred me to another, then another. It wasn't much, but it was something. 2 weeks before the court date, I moved out of Nora's house and into a tiny studio apartment. It was all I could afford, but it was mine. I set up a desk in the corner. I hung a whiteboard on the wall for planning events. I bought a cheap coffee maker and a secondhand chair. It wasn't my old office, but it was a start. The night before the court date, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, and thought about everything that had led me here. I thought about Marcus, about the lies, the betrayal, the years I'd wasted. I thought about my business, about the long hours, the sacrifices, the pride I'd felt in building something from nothing. And I thought about the woman I'd been when I overheard that phone call. She'd been broken, shattered, but she'd also been angry. And anger, I'd learned, could be fuel. The next morning, I put on my best suit, one of the few nice things I still owned, and walked into the courthouse. Rachel met me outside. "You ready?" "Yes." The hearing was brutal. Marcus's lawyer tried everything, attacking my credibility, questioning Richard's findings, painting me as a scorned wife out for revenge. But Rachel didn't flinch. She presented the evidence methodically, calmly. The emails, the recordings, Jake's testimony. By the time she was done, there was no question. The judge ruled in my favor. Marcus was ordered to return the stolen funds, every penny. He was also ordered to pay my legal fees and damages for emotional distress. As the judge read the ruling, I looked across the courtroom at Marcus. He looked small, defeated. He wouldn't look at me. Outside the courthouse, Rachel shook my hand. "You did it." "We did it," I said. She smiled. "What's next for you?" I thought about my tiny apartment, my whiteboard, my growing list of clients. "I'm going to rebuild," I said, and I meant it. The money didn't come right away. Marcus appealed the judgment, dragging the process out for another 3 months. Rachel assured me it was a delay tactic. He knew he'd lost, but he wanted to make it as painful as possible for me. I didn't care. I had work to do. I threw myself into my freelance business. I took every job I could find, no matter how small. A corporate retreat for a local startup. A baby shower for a friend of Nora's. A retirement party for a woman I'd never met but who'd heard about me through word of mouth. The work was exhausting. I was doing everything myself. Planning, coordinating, setting up, tearing down. Some nights, I'd come home to my studio apartment and collapse on the floor, too tired to even make it to the bed. But I was building something. Every event I completed was a small victory. Every satisfied client was proof that I still had what it took. One afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Kate Harmon?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes. Who's this?" "My name is Vanessa Price. I'm getting married in 3 months, and I'm looking for an event planner. Your name came up in a Facebook group." I sat up straighter. "What kind of wedding are you looking for?" "Something elegant, but not over the top. We have about 150 guests. My budget is $60,000. $60,000. That was a real budget. A real wedding. "I'd love to help," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We met at a coffee shop the next day. Vanessa was in her early 30s, warm and enthusiastic. Her fiancé, Daniel, was quieter, but clearly devoted to her. As we talked through their vision, a garden ceremony, a reception under string lights, handmade details, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Excitement. "I love your ideas," Vanessa said. But I have to be honest, I reached out to a few other planners too. Can you send me a proposal by the end of the week? Absolutely. I spent the next 3 days crafting the best proposal of my life. I outlined every detail, the timeline, the vendor list, the budget breakdown. I included mock-ups, inspiration boards, and contingency plans. I poured everything I had into it. When I sent it off, I felt a flicker of hope. 2 days later, Vanessa called. "We want to work with you," she said. I almost cried. Planning Vanessa's wedding was a turning point. It was the first big project I'd taken on since losing my company, and I was terrified I'd mess it up. But I didn't. I coordinated with florists, caterers, photographers. I scouted venues and negotiated contracts. I managed timelines and handled last-minute crises with the calm efficiency I'd honed over 12 years. On the day of the wedding, everything came together perfectly. The garden was transformed into a dreamscape of white flowers and twinkling lights. The ceremony was heartfelt and beautiful. The reception was everything Vanessa and Daniel had hoped for. As I watched them dance under the stars, surrounded by their loved ones, I felt a swell of pride. I'd done this, me, alone. After the wedding, Vanessa posted photos on social media, tagging me and gushing about how incredible the day had been. Within a week, I had 3 new inquiries, then 5, then 10. Word was spreading. I was too busy to handle everything alone, so I reached out to a few people I'd worked with at my old company. Some had moved on to other jobs, but 2, Amy and Josh, were freelancing and looking for steady work. "Want to help me with a few events?" I asked. They both said yes. It wasn't a full team, but it was a start. Around this time, the money from the judgment finally came through. Marcus's appeal had been denied, and the court ordered him to pay immediately. Rachel called to give me the news. "The funds are being transferred to your account. You should see them within a few days." I stared at my phone after we hung up. The money wouldn't replace what I'd lost. My company, my reputation, the years I'd wasted on Marcus. But it was something. It was a foundation. I used part of it to pay off my debts and build up my savings. The rest I invested back into my business. I rented a small office space. Nothing fancy, just a single room with a desk and a meeting table. I bought proper equipment. I updated my website. I hired Amy and Josh part-time. Slowly, carefully, I was building something new. But Marcus wasn't done yet. One night, as I was leaving the office, I found him waiting by my car. I froze. "We need to talk," he said. "No, we don't. You're violating the restraining order." "Katie, please, just hear me out." I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling the police." "Wait." He held up his hands. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I need you to understand." "Understand what?" "I'm broke," he said, his voice breaking. "The judgment wiped me out. I lost my job. Jake won't talk to me. My family cut me off. I have nothing." I stared at him. He looked terrible. His clothes were wrinkled. His face was gaunt. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. A year ago, I would have felt sorry for him. Now, I felt nothing. "That's not my problem," I said. "Katie, I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you. But you have to believe me. I never meant for it to go this far. You stole from me for 8 years. You sold my business out from under me. You called me your personal ATM. He flinched. "I was angry. I didn't mean it." "Yes, you did." He stepped closer. "Please, I just need a little help, just enough to get back on my feet. You got the money back? You're doing fine. Can't you?" "No." "Katie, get away from me," I said, my voice cold. "If you come near me again, I'll call the police. Do you understand?" He stared at me, his face twisting with something between rage and desperation. Then he turned and walked away. I stood by my car, shaking, until I couldn't see him anymore. Then I called Rachel. "He violated the restraining order," I said. "I want to file a report." "Good," she said. "I'll handle it." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the look on Marcus's face, the desperation, the anger. Part of me, the part that had loved him once, felt a flicker of pity, but the rest of me remembered the emails, the recordings, the years of lies. He'd made his choices. Now he had to live with them. The next morning, I got a call from a potential client. She'd seen Vanessa's wedding photos and wanted to hire me for her daughter's quinceañera. I scheduled a consultation. Then I got back to work, because Marcus's problems weren't my responsibility anymore. My life was. 6 months after the court ruling, my business was thriving in ways I hadn't dared to hope for. I'd planned 14 events: weddings, corporate gatherings, milestone birthdays. Amy and Josh were working with me regularly, and I'd hired a third person, Melissa, to handle administrative tasks. We were still small. We didn't have the resources or the reach of my old company, but we had something better: freedom. I got to choose which clients to work with. I got to set my own hours. I got to build something on my own terms. One afternoon, I was meeting with the bride at my office when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Nora. "Check your email. You're not going to believe this." I excused myself and opened my inbox. The subject line read, "Feature Opportunity, Portland Living Magazine." I clicked it. "Dear Ms. Harmon, my name is Jenna Caldwell, and I'm a writer for Portland Living Magazine. I'm working on a piece about local entrepreneurs who've overcome adversity, and your name came up repeatedly in my research. I'd love to interview you about your journey, losing your business, rebuilding from scratch, and the work you're doing now. Would you be interested in participating?" I read it twice. A magazine feature, a real one. I called Nora immediately. "Did you see it?" she asked. "How did this happen?" "Katie, people are talking about you. You've planned some incredible events, and your clients love you. This is your story getting out there." I hesitated. "I don't know if I want to talk about Marcus, about everything that happened." "You don't have to," Nora said. "You can focus on the business, the rebuild. But Katie, this is an opportunity. Don't let fear hold you back." She was right. I emailed Jenna back and agreed to the interview. We met at a cafe the following week. Jenna was in her 30s, sharp and professional. She asked thoughtful questions about my business, my process, my vision. And then she asked about Marcus. "I know this might be difficult to talk about," she said gently, "but your story is compelling because of what you overcame. Do you feel comfortable sharing what happened?" I thought about it. For months, I'd been trying to move past the betrayal, the humiliation. I'd buried myself in work, in rebuilding, in proving I was more than what Marcus had reduced me to, but maybe it was time to stop hiding. "Yes," I said, "I'll share it." I told her about the sale of my business, the lies, the discovery. I told her about the legal battle, the fear, the moments when I didn't think I'd make it. And I told her about the rebuild. "What kept you going?" Jenna asked. I paused. Anger, at first. I wanted to prove him wrong. But eventually, it became about something else. I realized I didn't need to prove anything to him. I needed to prove it to myself. Jenna smiled. "That's a powerful story." The article came out 3 weeks later. The headline read, "From Betrayal to Business: How Kate Harmon Rebuilt Her Event Planning Empire." It was a full-page feature with photos of me at work, quotes from clients, and a detailed account of my journey. Within hours of the magazine hitting newsstands, my phone started ringing. Inquiries poured in. Potential clients, vendors wanting to work with me, even a few reporters asking for follow-up interviews. I was overwhelmed and exhilarated. "This is incredible," Amy said, scrolling through the emails. "Katie, you're going to need more help." She was right. I hired 2 more planners and leased a bigger office space. We rebranded as Kate Harmon Events, a callback to my original company, but something new. For the first time since I'd signed those papers selling my business, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. But not everything was smooth. A few weeks after the article came out, I started getting strange messages on social media. At first, they were benign, criticisms of my work, claims that I was overcharging clients. I ignored them. But then they got nastier. Anonymous accounts posted comments calling me a liar, accusing me of fabricating the story about Marcus for sympathy. One message said, "You destroyed a good man's life because you couldn't handle failure." I knew it was Marcus, or someone he'd put up to it. I blocked the accounts and reported them, but they kept coming. Rachel advised me to document everything. If it escalates, we can take legal action. But for now, don't engage. He's trying to get a reaction. I hated it. I hated that even now, even after everything, he was still trying to hurt me. But I didn't let it stop me. I kept working. I kept building. One evening, as I was locking up the office, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in years. Linda. She was in town for a conference and had stopped by after seeing the magazine article. "Katie," she said, pulling me into a hug. "I'm so proud of you." "I couldn't have done it without you," I said. "Yes, you could have. You just needed a push." We grabbed dinner at a nearby restaurant. Over wine and pasta, Linda asked me about the business, the clients, the team. "You've come so far," she said. "How does it feel?" I thought about it. It feels different. My first company was everything to me. I poured my whole life into it. This time, I'm building something more balanced. I'm not sacrificing myself for it. Linda smiled. "That's growth." As we talked, I realized something. I wasn't the same person I'd been a year ago. I wasn't even the same person I'd been when I started my first company. I was stronger, sharper, more sure of myself. Marcus had tried to break me, and for a while I thought he had, but I was still standing. And I was building something he could never touch. That night, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "I need to talk to you." I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. "Hi, Kate. My name is Sarah Lindstrom. You don't know me, but I know your ex-husband. Or I did. I was with Marcus before you. He did the same thing to me, lied, stole, manipulated. I lost everything. I saw the article about you. I saw what you did, how you fought back. I wish I'd had the courage to do the same. I just wanted to say thank you. Your story gave me hope that maybe I can rebuild too." I stared at the email for a long time. Then I replied, "Sarah, thank you for reaching out. I'm so sorry for what you went through. You're not alone. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." Kate, she wrote back the next day. We met for coffee a week later. Sarah was in her late 30s, quiet and guarded. She told me her story, how Marcus had convinced her to invest in a business opportunity that didn't exist, how he'd drained her savings and disappeared. "I didn't report it," she said. "I was too ashamed. I thought it was my fault." "It wasn't," I said firmly. "I know that now, but at the time..." She trailed off. I gave up. I stopped trying. It took me years to even start putting my life back together. "You're doing it now," I said. "That's what matters." She smiled. A small, fragile thing. "Your article made me realize I don't have to stay broken." After we parted ways, I thought about Sarah, about the other women Marcus might have hurt, about the pattern of lies and manipulation. And I realized something. My story wasn't just about me. It was about every woman who'd been betrayed, manipulated, told she was worthless. It was about surviving and rebuilding and refusing to let someone else define your worth. That night, I started writing. I didn't know what it would become, a blog, a book, a series of posts. But I knew I needed to tell my story, the whole story. Not for Marcus, for the women like Sarah, for the women who thought they were alone, for the women who needed to know they could survive. 1 year after the court ruling, I stood in the lobby of a downtown hotel, watching as guests filtered into the ballroom. It was a charity gala I'd been planning for 3 months, a fundraiser for an organization that supported survivors of financial abuse. The irony wasn't lost on me. When the organizers had approached me, I'd hesitated. Reliving my own story, even indirectly, felt raw. But then I'd thought about Sarah, about the other women I'd connected with since the article came out. And I'd said yes. The event was beautiful. We'd transformed the ballroom with soft lighting, elegant centerpieces, and a program that highlighted the stories of survivors. I stood at the back of the room as the executive director took the stage. "Tonight," she said, "we celebrate resilience. We celebrate the men and women who refuse to let their circumstances define them. And we celebrate the community that supports them." The audience applauded. "I'd like to introduce someone special," the director continued. "Kate Harmon is the event planner who made tonight possible. But more than that, She's a survivor. Kate, would you like to say a few words? I hadn't prepared a speech. I hadn't planned to speak at all. But I walked to the stage anyway. I looked out at the crowd, hundreds of faces, some familiar, some strangers. A year ago, I said, I thought my life was over. I'd lost my business, my savings, my marriage. I felt like I had nothing left. I paused. But I was wrong. I had something no one could take from me. I had myself. The room was silent. Rebuilding hasn't been easy. There were days I didn't think I'd make it, days I wanted to give up, but I kept going. And slowly, piece by piece, I built something new. I smiled. It's not the same as what I had before. It's better. Because this time, it's mine. And no one can take it from me. The applause was thunderous. After the event, people came up to thank me, to share their own stories, to tell me I'd inspired them. It was overwhelming and humbling. As I was packing up, a woman approached me. She was in her 50s, elegant and poised. Kate, she said, I'm Monica Cross. I run a nonprofit that works with women escaping abusive relationships. I'd love to talk to you about partnering on some events. We exchanged information, and I promised to follow up. On the drive home, I thought about how far I'd come. A year ago, I'd been living in Nora's guest room, terrified and broken. Now, I had a thriving business, a team I trusted, and a sense of purpose I'd never had before. I wasn't just planning events. I was helping people. I was building something meaningful, and I was happy. A few days later, I was at the grocery store when I saw him. Marcus. He was in the cereal aisle, looking thinner and older than I remembered. He didn't see me at first. I could have walked away. I could have avoided him entirely. But I didn't. I walked up to him. Marcus, I said. He turned, startled. Katie. We stood there for a moment, the air thick with tension. How are you? I asked. He laughed bitterly. How do you think? I don't know. That's why I asked. He looked at me, something unreadable in his eyes. I'm surviving, barely. I'm working at a call center, living in a studio apartment. It's not much. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. Not because I regretted what I'd done, but because I didn't take pleasure in his suffering. Are you? He asked. You destroyed my life. No, I said calmly. You did that yourself. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. I hope you figure it out, I said. I really do, but I can't help you, and I won't. I turned to walk away. Katie, he called. I stopped. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For what I did, for all of it. I looked at him. I know. And then I left. As I drove home, I realized something. I didn't need his apology. I didn't need closure. I was already free. That night, I sat in my apartment, no longer a cramped studio, but a one-bedroom with a view of the city, and opened my laptop. I'd been writing my story for months, slowly piecing together the events, the emotions, the lessons. It was almost finished. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet. Publish it as a blog, turn it into a book, share it with the women I'd met along the way. But I knew it mattered, because my story wasn't just about betrayal, it wasn't just about loss. It was about rebuilding, about resilience, about refusing to let someone else define your worth. I typed the final sentence. I'm not Marcus's victim. I'm Kate. And that's more than enough. I closed the laptop and smiled. I'd done it. I'd survived. I'd rebuilt. And I was finally, truly at peace.